Hello, this video is a quick introduction on how to install the Starflight custom cockpit in a Lancair Legacy experimental airplane. My name's Valen. My wife Alice and I, we built a Lancair Legacy. And we built it in part and chose this kit because we think the Lancair Legacy is maybe one of the most beautiful airplanes ever designed. It has a beautiful flowing organic shape. But when we first saw the airplane, the first prototype, when it rolled into Oshkosh over 25 years ago, we looked at it, we thought this is probably the right airplane for us, but the interior and the cockpit didn't have an organic flowing design at all. It was very orthogonal, a lot of sharp edges and all. So we knew then we were going to have to change it to be happy with it. So we set off working up the design and making the molds and the parts and all that so we could do it. So here we are now in 2025. We're both retired, and yet we're still making this upgrade available to the Lancair Legacy community. There are over 100 Lancair Legacy kits out there that haven't been completely built yet. Also, there are a number of Lancair Legacies that have been flying for years who are wanting to refresh their airplanes, bring them to new or at least different. In fact, pilots say that when they sit in an airplane with our cockpit kit, they feel like they're in a completely different airplane than the stock Lancair Legacy. So that's why we're still trying to make sure that people have access to this kit. So what you're seeing here right now is what you begin with in the installation. You see all these parts, are probably about 20 parts. We've got the center console, the instrument panel itself, there are transition pieces that go to the cockpit side panels and their cockpit side panels, as well as if you look over here, you can kind of see there's an avionics cover and flanges that support mounting that to the airplane. So I'll just briefly, and you can see down here, these are access panels for the center console. Okay. So looking at the center console, some of the things, this is the way it's delivered. Some of the clearances that are required to get around the aft spar and the center console, which is the first thing one would begin with, those have been removed already. If you come around, look here more from the side, there's a corner here that will have to be removed by the builder because the flap drive tube goes through this area and there's a bearing block for that, and everybody wants to do that differently. And then of course you can see that the center console in this part this is closed, so this area would be removed, leaving like a 1/2-inch flange. But leave the area above the main spar here, so you've got a nice load path that makes this whole assembly strong. It's very light, but it's strong enough that you can stand on this and not have to worry about crushing it. So if you come back around here over to the side, we'll look at the top of the center console. These lines mark approximately where the throttle quadrant levers for 4 levers the application would be cut. The throttle quadrant, this is to look at it right here. This throttle quadrant can be configured for 1 lever, 2, 3, or 4, and they can be repositioned where they're at laterally here of different size phenolic spacers here that can be arranged so that you can get whatever configuration you want. Most Lancair Legacies have kind of a poor man's turbocharger, kind of a ram air assembly, and so this unusual this 4th lever here is the control for that ram air assembly. If you don't have that, you can certainly remove it. So I guess while we're talking about the throttle quadrant, let's go ahead and stay there, come around to the side here, and we'll just stay right there, and I'll go ahead and move over here, and I'll just kind of move this a bit. So I've drawn mounting location for the throttle quadrant here. You can see the throttle quadrant kind of goes in an orientation like this, internally of course. I recommend that they be mounted over here, remove the knobs, then remove the knobs from the throttle quadrant. These just kind of screw off. Here you got screws on this side, just remove those knobs so you can bring the throttle quadrant up through the slots here. And then make sure it's level. Make sure it's level before you mount the right side. So you want to see that it's actually in a good position. I have some provisional markings on the right side, but they may be off a bit because the way the center console is made, it's in 2 separate parts that get then bonded together, and if they can be just even slightly off, then it might change and put the throttle quadrant slightly out of level. Not anything that would affect its function, but I'm pretty picky about those kinds of things. So just to make sure that you've got that straight, just make sure that you've got the throttle quadrant leveled, and then see exactly where the mounting here on the right side, where to do that. Okay, so while we're on the center console, you can see we've got a circle here marking location for the fuel tank selector valve here. Now this is where we did it in our airplane, but I've seen installations that I like better. John Holtz is an example, and I'll put in a picture showing how John integrated in his fuel selector valve, so it's kind of recessed, but it makes kind of a nice little ellipse as it cuts into the center console and eliminates the need for a U-joint here at this control. For our installation, we've got, kind of look around the side here, of course the fuel tank selector valve is in this location, and then you can use two U-joints that come up to the control here in order to translate where the controls are. If you want to do it that way, using Andair's equipment, Andair's in England, and they provide a lot of the hardware for the fuel system and the basic kit and what we used in our airplane. They, since the original design was done, they've put a constraint on their U-joints for the fuel selector of 30 degrees. So for this particular arrangement, you get closer to like 40 degrees. And so if you do want to do it that way, make sure you let them know that you have the Starhawk or the Starflight kit, the cockpit kit, and that you need kind of the U-joints that have a 45 degree, it's called the operating angle. It's kind of how much the U-joint can operate acceptably, and they will provide that. If I were doing it today though, I would do the John Holtz installation up here, eliminate that U-joint, and then have one U-joint down here, and if the operating angle is a little bit over, if it gets over 30, I would just tilt up the fuel tank valve so that you can keep that operating angle of this one down under 30 degrees. So the installation manual will have a bunch of details about that, but I just want to get you thinking about that. And then I'll try to edit in some pictures at least so you know what I'm talking about with John Holt's installation up here. It's really elegant, it's really good. And eliminates one of the U-joints. Okay, so for the center console, we've got this piece here. Also, as we know, we have this organic design and as you can see here, this is the piece that goes between the seats, and the canopy latching lever would go through here. So I've kind of marked where that slot is, but you'll want to confirm the stops here. And I do recommend that if you haven't already, that you implement I guess we'll call it the canopy prop open modification. That's a modification we developed like 25 years ago, maybe almost 25 years ago, so that the canopy props open about an inch and you get your fingers under it and get it open. So that's very helpful, but it also ended up being very helpful in terms of canopy flight or latching safety hazard for the Lancair Legacy, because in the stock design, the canopy can go all the way down and not be latched. The pilots might think that it's latched and ready for takeoff, but they don't have it latched. And then it opens in flight. It creates some airmanship challenges. And so I recommend that you have that prop open mod, and I bring that up here because with the prop open mod, you'll change these up and down locations for the lever arm so that the claws for the canopy are in the right position. And I might add that section into the cockpit installation guide, or at least make sure I provide it to people who order the kit. Okay, so that's where this would go, and it bonds onto that structure, the seat back structure. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'll go ahead and turn this around here. Oh, and I guess I should say, you can see behind us here, this is our airplane that we named Starhawk, and you can see I've got our avionics powered up just for a little bit, better backdrop. And of course we finished it all off in black, so it's hard to photograph. We chose black because we didn't want reflections off the canopy. We're in flight for photography purposes or just our own direct observation. And so we've been very happy with it. But we've seen, of course, cockpits finished in all kinds of metallic red, cream, you name it, you get a very different look with the same setup here. Okay, so let's look on this forward side of the center console. So remember, we got, of course, the throttle quadrant comes in here. You kind of see these holes at the leading edge of the levers here that you may need to move depending on your engine installation and what throws you've got. You can move it up or down depending on if you need more or less of a throw. And the cables then will come, you cut this area out here, this is the engine cable passage, and then you'll need to mount the engine cables. They've got a fixed side to mount where the control rods or push rods exit the assembly. And so this bracket here gets attached, it's 4 holes, it gets attached to the forward section here. And so depending on how many engine cables you've got, you'll put 1, 2, 3, or 4, probably 4 across here for the engine cables coming out. Now I drew a line here that if these circles here are kind of the typical hydraulic lines going to the nose gear. So if you've got yours in the same place, you need more clearance, just trim off this piece. In fact, a lot of this flange on this piece here could be trimmed off, but at least in this example, I've got it left there and I kind of put a line for it, so that's where that would go. Okay, so now let's talk about how, we talked a lot about the center console, but I'll talk about the next step, which is putting the instrument panel on top. Right now, it's just sitting on the center console. I kind of put some tape there to keep it from falling off too easily. So we'll turn this around here a bit. Yeah, this is probably a good, let's put it like this maybe. Okay. So what you see laying on the table here are the cockpit side panels, okay, and as well as the trim pieces. So this isn't the full transition, to the fuselage or cockpit sidewalls. Go ahead and come on over here and kind of get a look at this assembly here. let's just start by describing. It's laying down, but imagine this is kind of the side of the cockpit, and here this is the trim piece that goes to the instrument panel. This is kind of, it's easier for me to show it to you this way. And then this is a flange that provides the lip. I've made it longer than I used it in our airplane, so people can decide how long they want it in their airplane. And so the side panel just fits up under the lip in the cockpit, and then down here in your seat pan, around your seat pan, you just put one screw in, put a nut plate in your wheel well, and that one screw holds between the flange up here and that screw, the whole side panel just rests in place. Okay, so that's kind of how that works here. But let's go ahead and go back up to the instrument panel itself. So we have these, I would call it the version 1.0 of this cockpit kit, where this provided a nice organic transition piece to the side of the cockpit, and it also provides structural support. Of course, the instrument panel is supported by the center console, and then there's one of these corner supports, what we call them, over here. And a lot of people, they've done this first generation design. It looks really cool. But then one reason I did a second generation is I saw how some upholstery shops or people were finishing them off, and I didn't really like the design, the result really. And so I thought, okay, well, what would I do? And I realized it's probably more involving than I first thought. And so what I ended up doing is I created a trim piece here to make a transition to the sidewall that I think is more aesthetically pleasing. I recommend this piece gets bonded onto the instrument panel, but of course you have the option. Someone might prefer this, you might not want to have a side panel, because having this transition piece is very much designed for our cockpit side panel, but there are other ways you can still use it and be happy with it going with the kind of a different transition. And so it just bonds on here. Now some people have actually used this piece and kept it a separate piece. I don't personally like that, but everybody has different design sensibilities, and so just do what's right for you. But I recommend that this gets bonded in, integrated in, and that's what we did in our airplane. And so it will end up, you'll see the structural support still goes in, the corner support, and then these go over it, so you don't even see it. And then we'll just go ahead, I'll go ahead and try to hold this up here. So if we put the side panel up here, it goes approximately, this is all going to get cut out, okay? But depending on what some people did, we went ahead and kind of matched that corner support shape. And so it goes approximately in this position. Perhaps it'd be easier if I kind of put this up here, see if I can hold it in position. Probably not. I could probably tape it in position. Put my hand over here. Okay, there we go. It's gonna hold it about like that. It's not quite right. So you can kind of see how it goes a bit like this. And so then, once it's all installed, you want to install both the, once it's all set, is that you'll want to go around the edge of this trim piece with a Sharpie and onto the side panel, and then just cut that whole area underneath out. And then the side panel, even with all this in, easily is removable from the cockpit without having to mess with the instrument panel at all. So it's a much, it's much more finished look, I think, aesthetically, and organic, no sharp corners, and it fits the exterior design of the airplane. All right, well let's go ahead. I know we showed the avionics cover down here, but let's just go ahead and show how it fits. Anyone who's worked with the stock installation knows that the fit for the avionics cover, which really is kind of a combined avionics cover and glare shield, because the stock panel, our design has the glare shield really integrated into the instrument panel. The stock one just has the panel, and then this avionics cover extends over to provide a glare shield. And none of it fits. I've seen a number of legacies where it's just open. People just punted and decided, okay, I'll just leave it open. It's probably good. Thermally, it helps. But ours, it fits perfectly. It's very difficult to do that, so I'm sympathetic with the challenges the people that made the stock parts had to deal with. It was a very difficult challenge to get this done correctly. So here's that avionics cover, as I say we call it. There's a flange. I'll just go and put this up here. So we made a flange. At one time we just had people glassing their own flange, but we made a part. And so it gets bonded on the back here. And so it's really easy to just put nut plates in. The avionics cover just kind of mounts, sets here up against it. And then there's that flange, which maybe I didn't point out the first time. This flange goes around the forward edge of the cockpit, right? And the avionics cover sits in that. Let's see if I can get these two put together here. And so it makes for a very accurate and simple installation, because with these flanges, this flange gets bonded on the forward edge. You just go around the perimeter with nut plates and screws, including on the flange on the back of the instrument panel, and it provides the clearance needed but no more, so you've got maximum space behind the instrument panel. And you can also do things with the avionics cover like we did. We put, might add that section in our manual, where we have our defrost ducting is actually with holes that come out of here around the instrument panel. So I might put that in the manual. People might appreciate that. So anyway, that's just a quick introduction. The installation guide is maybe 60 pages with a lot of pictures, and this at least gives you a good idea of what all's involved. And I think every airplane should have this, not because of any personal financial interest, just because I think this is what I think was kind of left undone in the airplane. And so whether you're flying already or you haven't finished building your airplane, I think you should give this a careful consideration. And so if you are heading off on a build and you have any questions or problems, don't hesitate to give us a call or send an email, and we'll see what we can do to help you out. But good luck with your project.